Oh, hello, hello, everyone. Oh man, that does not sound like that Cirque du Soleil enthusiasm I've been promised. You need some coffee. Hello, everyone. A Mongolian contortionist walks into a human resources office. Okay, now before I continue with what I hope and pray to be a joke, I have to remind you that I am the Cirque du Soleil guy. This is a Cirque du Soleil inspired session. You have signed up to be in here with me for 45 minutes, so whether you like it or not, we are going to take a flying leap with what I hope to be a joke and see if it lands. Leap, Cirque du Soleil, anybody? Thank you so much, thank you so much. So these are our contortionists from, pictured over here. They're all from Mongolia, so they truly are Mongolian contortionists. I'm not making that up. The one at the top, she is the feisty one. So she marches into the human resources office of the resident show division of Cirque du Soleil. She looks around because we have an open office concept, and she finds her human resources rep. The contortionist, she sits down, and with a huff, she says, "You've got me doing 2 shows a night, 5 nights a week, 480 shows a year." And the HR rep says, "Well, that's what all of our performing artists do." The contortionist says, "Yeah, but this isn't working for me." And then the contortionist says, "I'm really gonna need a more flexible schedule." I know, contortionist, flexibility. Thank you, thank you. That is probably why I work for Cirque du Soleil and not Saturday Night Live. I wanna begin by sharing, you were talking about creativity, and I wanna begin by sharing with you a time when Cirque du Soleil fell flat on their face, or a time actually when my team and I fell flat on our face, because we did not exercise creativity. We did not exercise that Cirque du Soleil creativity. So 3 years ago, Cirque du Soleil, we said, "Hey, we're Cirque du Soleil. We can do anything. We're going to do corporate events." Doesn't that sound like a good idea? Wasn't a great idea, folks. So at the time, we put out our M&R and we talked to people and we said, "We're doing corporate events." And because of the gravitas of the name Cirque du Soleil, people actually signed up. So our first event went so bad, it was so horrible, it was so uncreative that we had to come up with a name for it internally. We call this the story of the unfortunate 500 company. So we say we're doing corporate events. This Fortune 500 calls us. They say, "We want one of your events." We're like, "Great." And they say, "We want it to be immersive. We want it to be about creativity. We want it to be interactive. We want it to be that Cirque du Soleil creativity." Like, "We can do that." They're like, "How much does it cost?" We don't know, so we make up a number. We say tens of thousands of dollars. And we send them out a contract, and they send us back what? Tens of thousands of dollars. And then so we say, "We got this, we're Cirque." So we go to the production team and we say, "This corporate event, this corporation, this Fortune 500 wants this event on innovation and creativity. They want it to be immersive. Let's do it." They say yes. And that, my folks, is the extent of our planning. Sounds good? So these C-level executives and VPs come from all around the world. They're staying in different properties in Vegas. Has anyone been to Vegas? So if you know anything about the properties in Vegas, they're what? Huge. So one thing that we failed to do is we failed to put out signage. So these C-level executives don't know where to go. So the event is going to start, and we have 5 of maybe the 30 or 40 people that are supposed to be there. We don't know who's supposed to be there because we didn't print the attendance list. So my team and we're like, "What can we do? What can we do?" They're dressed just like me, like this, Cirque chic. So I say, "Go out into the casino and try to find people who look like they might work for this corporation." Was that a good idea? So my team and we're out, we're like, "Do you work for Corporation X? Do you work for Corporation X? Do you work for Corporation X?" Some people say yes, thank God. Most people look at us like we're crazy. And then we gather what we think is the entire group of people. We take them into the theater, and we don't know what's going to happen because guess what? We don't have an agenda. Wow. So we say, "We need someone to speak." We don't have a speaker. We bring up the head of automation, And we sit him back because we want to see how the event is going. So this guy, he talks for 3 minutes about the lights, and the people are really interested. He talks for 5 minutes about the sound system. Then he talks for 10 minutes about this and about projections. 20 minutes later, people are looking at their watches. 25 minutes later, people are rolling their eyes. 30 minutes later, the phones come out, and they're not tweeting about our event. Or maybe they are, and we don't want to read these tweets. So about 55 minutes, and we do what Cirque du Soleil always does. We say, we're going to wow them. We put on lights, camera, action. There's someone flying through the sky. He dazzles, he contorts, he flips, he flops. They give a mild applause. Because although it was Cirque du Soleil and we took them to an amazing venue, we did an act, it was not creative. And this is why you should be creative. This is why this is really important, because when those disappointed executives walked out of that office, not only did they walk out of the office, but referrals walked out of the office. Ticket sales walked out of that venue. Our reputation walked out of that venue. So we've learned from that. So today, we're going to start our session a little more creatively. If you are not sitting at a table where there are handouts, please move to one. And I want you to turn to the person next to you. You can work in groups of 2 or 3 and choose one of these things for your inspiration. You can either choose balloons, you can choose building blocks, or you can choose crayons. Talk and make your choice. Which one most inspires you? Balloons or building blocks or crayons? Choose wisely, my friends. Which one most inspires you? Balloons, building blocks, or crayons? Let's get a show of hands. How many of you chose balloons? How many of you chose building blocks? How many of you chose crayons? Everyone has their choice. Excellent. We're going to come back to that later. That's going to be really important for our talk about creativity or our activity about creativity. When people think of creativity and Cirque du Soleil's, they think of our shows. Our shows are the byproduct. I like to say that creativity at Cirque du Soleil, and I think creativity anywhere, is not a process, it's not a product, it's a mindset. And for other companies, if you're in consumer packaged goods, you may think that you might want to elect or not elect creativity. So if you're selling hot dogs, you may say, I can approach this creatively or I cannot. If you're in financial services, you can say, well, I can approach this creatively or I cannot. If you are Cirque du Soleil, because we are both a contemporary circus and a corporate entity, we have to approach traditional business problems creatively. We're a circus and a corporation. We can't approach that normally. And one key example of this is in 1980, when we had to raise funds for Cirque du Soleil. So our founders, Guy Liberté, Gilles Saint-Croix, Guy Caron, they all said, hey, we want to start the circus thing. But just as most startups, they had big dreams and small pockets. So they had to raise money, and they said, first, let's do what everyone else does. So a lot of people in 1980, there was no Kickstarter, there were not many hedge funds in Quebec, there was no app for that where you could just PayPal people money. So they said, we have to raise money. So they went to the government, and guess what they asked for? Money. What type of money does the government give? Grants. So they went to the government and they asked for grants. So they go to the government of Quebec and they say, hey, government of Quebec, we are starting a circus. And the government says, yeah, we know, we've seen you performing on the street outside of our building. And then they say, we need some money. And one of the guys who looked at their application, his comments literally were, you guys are unknown. This will never work. A little disheartening, right? So he says, they said, what can we do? We're dealing with the government. How about we play politics? So Gilles Saint-Croix says, I'll go over to Bain St. Paul. They're the neighboring town. And if they give us money, then Quebec will feel pressure to give us money because we're from Quebec. So he goes over to the town of Bain St. Paul. He talks to the mayor. He says, hey, mayor. And the mayor says, what's up? And he says, hey, we need money for this circus thing. And the mayor says, say no more. I will give you a grant. How much do you need? $100? $200? Gilles St. Croix says, I was thinking more in the thousands. And the mayor is like, no, we're a small town. That is our electric bill for an entire year. We cannot do this. So Gilles St. Croix says, we're trying to do this traditionally, but we are a circus. This is not going to work for us. So they think and they think and they think, and they say, what can we do? And they say, let's pull a stunt. So Gilles St. Croix talks to Bay St. Paul, he talks to Quebec, he talks to all the newspapers. He says, hey, everyone, to raise money for our circus, we're going to pull a stunt. And they say, well, you do stunts every day. He says, no, I'm going to execute a one-man walkathon. And they say, well, school kids do walkathons all the time to raise money for organizations. What's so unique about that? He says, I'm going to walk the 95 miles from Bay St. Paul to Quebec City. Say that 3 times fast, Quebec City. And they say, okay, 95 miles, 95 kilometers, no big deal. He says, I'm going to walk the 95 kilometers on stilts. So on a sunny day in the town of Bay St. Paul, Gilles St. Croix straps on his 5-foot-high stilts. He walks for 22 hours. He walks a total of 56 miles. Now, if he were wearing a Fitbit, he would have logged 110,000 steps and a few blisters, and a few days later, he gets the money from Quebec. Isn't that a great story, folks? Yeah. Who wants to walk 56 miles in stilts? That's not what we're going to do today. The reason why I tell this story is because when people think of Cirque du Soleil, they think of the huge shows and the huge spectacles. At Cirque du Soleil, creativity is a mindset, and that mindset can be encapsulated in these 2 phrases. We can do it differently, and we can do it better. And that's how we approach every single show. That's how we innovate, and that's how we create. So if you think of a show like The Beatles' Love, has anyone seen Love? How would you describe it? Colorful. What would you say? Remarkable. Anybody else? Yes.
The most amazing show I've ever seen in my life.
The most amazing show I've ever seen in my life. That $20 bill paid off, right? It is an amazing show, but when you think about it, it's really just a tribute show. That's really all it is. And the way we took it from a tribute show to a creative, amazing show is we asked ourselves, how can we do it differently, and how can we do it better? And this is how they did it differently and better. Here's our theater. This theater is one of the few theaters that is a theater in the round for a circus. That means the stage is in the center, and it's surrounded by 360 degrees of seats. There are 2,000 seats in that theater. Each seat has 2 speakers in the back and 1 in the front to give each individual audience member a surround sound experience of the show. And if that's not enough, because this show pays homage to the Beatles, the stage, if you could look at it from aerially, it is shaped like the British flag or the Union Jack. Just a tribute show. Cirque du Soleil said, we can do it differently, and we can do it better. How many of you have seen O? How would you describe O in the green? Aqua. Anyone else? Yes. Excellent. O is an excellent show. It's an amazing show. It's one of our best-selling shows. It's $2 billion in ticket sales to date. But it's really just a water show. There are lots of water shows in the world. Cirque du Soleil said, we want to do a water show, but how can we do it differently, and how can we do it better? So they said, let's put it inside. Let's make it a 1.5 million gallon pool that transforms from solid to liquid in under 30 seconds. So at once, someone could be flipping across the stage, and in another moment, someone could be diving down into the stage from 65 feet high. Let's do it differently. Let's do it better. Has anyone seen Ka? Yes. How would you describe Ka, sir? Remarkable stage. Anyone else? Vertical. In its essence, Ka is just a martial arts show. That's all it is. It's nothing else. It's martial arts. It's wushu, it's kung fu, it's capoeira. There's nothing really special about it at its core. That's what we started with. And then they say, how could we take Ka to new heights? How could we do it differently, and how could we do it better? So they decided to build this 9-story high venue. When you walk in, it's 9 stories. It's about 5 times as high as this. It's 11 stories total with the basements, and this stage weighs 80,000 pounds. It is 4.5 stories wide or tall, depending. The reason why I say depending, because this stage, which is the size of an aircraft, rotates 360 degrees. And I'm not making this up. It is also, in addition to it rotating, in addition to it weighing that much, it's also a touch-sensitive projection surface on which the acrobats perform vertically. Cirque du Soleil is always asking, how can we do it differently? How can we do it better? That mindset took us from this tent in 1987, this tent we borrowed, this tent we didn't even know how to set up when we got it. It took us from this to what you know today of us, which is this. And I think in a minute we're going to have some sound. There we go.
channel.
We also have a YouTube channel if you want to subscribe. So let's go back to the balloons, the coloring books, the balloons, the building blocks, like I say, and the crayons. So you've made your choice, right? Everyone has their choice. Raise your hand. Yep. So now it's time for you to exercise Cirque du Soleil type thinking, that we can do it differently and we can do it better type of thinking. We've done this activity before, and people ask, Jay, why balloons and building blocks and crayons? Why not helicopters and motorcycles and cars? Well, the reason why we choose balloons and building blocks and crayons is because they have a lot in common with circus. Balloons and building blocks and crayons, just like circus 30 years ago, before Cirque du Soleil, before the Circus of the Sun, it was considered trivial and childish and inconsequential, literally childish, like it's for kids. What Cirque du Soleil did by exercising that we can do it differently and we can do it better mindset is that they reinvented the circus, such that when people are watching our shows, they don't even know they're watching a circus show. We did a study and we asked people, what words come to mind when you think of Cirque du Soleil? And people said, sophisticated for a circus, right? Timeless for a circus. Innovative for a circus. And extravagant for a circus. So here is your challenge. I want you to turn to the person next to you with whom you make this choice, and I want you to take, let's say, 2 minutes, and brainstorm ways and write down ways you can rethink balloons or building blocks or crayons so that when people see your product, just as they see our circus, they think of the words sophisticated, timeless, innovative, and extravagant. Up for the challenge? Yeah. 2 minutes, go. Brainstorm, talk. What can you do to balloons and building blocks and crayons such that they are sophisticated, timeless, innovative, and extravagant? What can you do? What can you do? 2 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. You have one more minute. What can you do to balloons or building blocks and crayons so that you can reinvent them, just as Cirque du Soleil reinvented the circus? What can you do? I see some hand gestures. Someone has some really big ideas. Balloons, building blocks, crayons. Reinvent them in the way that Cirque du Soleil reinvented the circus. All right, 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get 3 people to stand up and share their ideas. 3 people. How did you reinvent balloons, building blocks, or crayons? We have a microphone here. 1, 2, and 1 more person or group of people.
What's that? Hold it up close.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
the only
what's
one
your
with
name,
the mic.
sir?
Hi, I'm Tim.
Tim, what did
Yes,
you
no more
choose?
Dave. We chose balloons.
Balloons.
And so we had a couple ideas. One, they could reinflate rather than so that they self-reinflate. Potentially they change color and made of different fabrics and materials. So why are they always plastic? They could be made of upholstery or satin or something more sophisticated. And the string doesn't need to be string. It could be thread or velvet, or potentially not a string at all, potentially made of metal or a glass container or something that holds them. And then if they could fly and come back. So you let it go, they go up, potentially do something, take a picture, record their journey, record the data of where they went, and then they return to you.
Wow, excellent. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Can we get one of those in Coach leather? Can we do one in Coach leather too? Okay, let's get another idea. Okay. What is your name and what did you choose?
Hi, I'm Leanne Leahy, and we all chose balloons.
Balloons. You have competition in the market.
And I will say, this is very loud. I will say we had a lot of the same things with changing color and changing texture. And what else did you say that we also had? And that they can go away and come back. All interesting things.
But you have something more interesting, right? That was really
Yeah,
great,
sorry.
but mine is
Sorry
much
about
better.
that.
Yeah, that's cute.
No,
but
we also had that they can change shape.
Change shape.
So they're not just a round thing. They can become different items. So imagine them as stars, and then they morph into clouds. And if they come together, that they actually fuse into a singular shape. And we also thought about removing the strings, so they're sort of remote controlled, so you can take them in different, they can dance in different patterns. Wow. And then we thought also about maybe taking the balloons out of the air and creating a surface of balloons.
Oh.
So it becomes the ground instead of the sky.
Oh, surface of balloon. Round of applause. We got some patents in the room. Don't say this is another ballooner. Okay, what do we have?
We have crayons, if I speak in my Rochester accent, or crayons.
Crayons.
Okay.
Ka.
All
Yeah.
right, so I'm not sure if I should sit down, or I kind of like that our idea is simple, but addresses it's sophisticated, timeless, innovative, and extravagant. We have designer crayons. We have different colors, different flavors. We have Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and what's the name of the shoe? Le Botan. Louis Vuitton and Gucci colors, and designer bags that they come in and so forth.
Wow, crayons. Give them a round of applause. Excellent, excellent. Designer crayons for your designer bag. I want building blocks. I want to hear somebody with building blocks. Here we go. We have a volunteer over here, kind of, sort of. What can you do with building blocks to make them sophisticated, timeless, innovative, and extravagant?
Thanks very much. We came up with building blocks. We thought about the similar things, actually, changing the material that they're made, turning them into platinum, which would add some sophistication to them, how we could manipulate them differently so we could magnetize them, and therefore we could pull them into different shapes.
Oh.
And we'd also make them massive. So there would be tall building blocks as tall as a tower. That's more or less what we come up with.
Excellent. Round of applause. Giant-sized building blocks. You know what this stage is like you're the Cirque du Soleil wannabe. You're a great gymnast, and you come to Cirque du Soleil, and you're like, oh, I have this amazing idea, you have this amazing talent, but we want you to take it to the next level. And I'll give you an example. One of the ways, specific ways that we harness creativity at Cirque du Soleil is to hybridize. We like to call it the chocolate-covered bacon approach. We put two great tastes that don't seem like they should taste great together, but when we put them together, we make something even more amazing. We take a gymnast and we put him or her in the air. Gymnasts are usually afraid of heights, by the way, so you didn't know that. We put him or her in the air and we transform them into an aerialist. Here's an example from O. I want you to look at this picture and tell me there are different elements that we've combined from the bateau act in O. Look at this picture and tell me, what do you think we've combined? There's no wrong answer. Wrong. No, there's no wrong answer. I'm joking. What do you think we've combined? Trapeze, yes. Not so. That's a good idea for later. Yeah, we'll take that. What? Tightrope, not tightrope. Trapeze is there. Movement, yeah. And it's in the air, so it's also what? Aerial. Anything else? Gymnastics. We'll take gymnastics. I think someone said it, or I'm putting it in someone's mouth. Yes. Sailing, yes, sailing because it is, in a sense, a bateau. What you see here is a boat. So what you see here is our artist. She is flying high, and she has just jumped from, she didn't jump, she actually gracefully leapt from the high bar. That is one apparatus. She is being caught by our catcher in a cradle, which comes from trapeze, and if it works right, as it always does for 2 shows a night, 5 nights a week, 480 shows a year, she will land in what you can't see here, which are the parallel bars. And if it happens right, which it does 2 shows a night, 5 nights a week, 480 shows a year, this will happen 5 seconds later on the other side of the apparatus. So you are this artist, and you have this great kind of talent. And what we're going to ask you to do is to think like Cirque again. We're going to ask you to hybridize. So I want you to get with someone who chose something different from you as a pair. So stand up. Everyone stand up. You might have to move. If you chose balloons, get with someone with building blocks, crayons, blah, blah, blah. Get with a different group. And how can you hybridize? How can you combine your ideas? Talk amongst yourselves. And if you can't find a group who chose something differently, if you cannot find a group who chose something differently, then what I would like for you to do is just add something to yours. Add one of these elements. How can you combine your ideas? Everyone, voices off in 3. I need your attention in 2. I need your attention in 1. Remember that they also have to be sophisticated, timeless, innovative, and extravagant. Go, 2 minutes, talk amongst yourselves. All right, I need your attention in 3, your attention in 2, your attention in 1. Now, the last part of the challenge, if you are so inclined to do so, come up with a creative name. We call ourselves Cirque du Soleil, or Circus of the Sun. What is the name of your product? Take 30 seconds. Come up with a name for your product. We call ourselves the Circus of the Sun. What will be your product's name? All right, let's get four groups to share. Choose your representative. Choose your person who's going to do the pitch, as you say in the advertising world. Who's going to pitch us? Let's get 4 people. Stand up and share your ideas. We have 1. We need 3 more. We have 2. We need 2 more. 3, and we need 1 more. 4. And let's start. We can do 5. Yes. Yeah. We can do. Let's do 5. Go ahead. And we'll start with you. Yes. All right, let's listen up, folks. What did you combine, and how did you combine it?
We combined crayons and blocks.
Crayons and blocks.
We are calling them chroma blocks. because we
blocks.
liked the idea of color and then structure. What we really loved was this idea that they could be malleable to what you wanted them to be. So instead of building them out of traditional wood and limiting ourselves to traditional colors, we could take the inspiration of the color from the crayons to have blocks that were made out of innovative materials, and you could make something that looked more structural but had like the whimsy of crayons, and they could be easily, we suspended reality, they could be easily like modeled up or down into what you wanted them to be at that moment.
Excellent. Give her a round of applause. Yeah, chromo blocks. Excellent. Suspend reality, that's the way you create. I want to say something about the suspending reality. When you're in the creation process, what you're doing is you're creating something that doesn't exist. Side note, everything, who watched Star Trek? Everything on Star Trek exists now, right? Yeah, like you have a tablet that you can swipe, you can call people from your Bluetooth. Everything exists now. It was fantasy, it's now reality. That's what creativity is. Next, what do you have?
All right, well, these advertise themselves, we thought. We combined balloons with blocks, introducing bollocks. They sell themselves. But if we need to sell them, they are helium-filled anti-gravity, they glow in the dark, and they conform to different shapes.
Excellent. Bollocks. 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 Round of applause. Let's get another patentable, innovative idea.
Thank you. We're an artist collective. We call ourselves Helio Art.
Oh.
And
wow.
we work with the medium of balloons and crayons. And so we've actually got a series of installations that we put together, but they usually involve putting the canvas down. And so in one case, we attach the crayons to the balloons. There's a roof, so it's all just the crayon is just barely touching the paper. There's a drawing. And then we turn a fan on, a prototype, really.
Okay.
We turn the fan on, and the balloons move the crayons across the paper, creating a sort of a Nouveau Pollock type experience, where each canvas results in its own unique expression. We also have created balloons that look like crayons. We float them up the side of a building, and then you just let nature draw against the side of the building until it produces its canvas. Those are the two best ones.
Excellent. Helio Art. Round of applause. That is another amazing idea. Yes.
We also did crayons and balloons, and we got a little trippy. Instead of dream catcher, we came up with the phrase dream hatcher. Mm-hmm. And that would be that you would use crayons and draw them into shapes, and they become balloons that float away.
Ooh, wow. Excellent. Little trippy. Yeah.
Round
Round of applause. Speaking of trippy, our founders met in a commune, so we kind of get the trippy part.
Thank you. I'm Dave. This is Lauren and Sylvia, and our product, which is going to be sold in Party City in Q4.
Very ambitious. That's very Shark Tanky. Yeah.
And by the way, we're taking balloons and the building blocks, and we're calling it ballions. Oh no, so we're taking we're taking balloons and crayons. My apologies. And we're calling these ballions.
Valium or
ballions?
Oh, okay.
B-A-L-Y-O-N-S.
Either one would sell well. Go ahead.
And what you do, so if you're having any type of party, a bar mitzvah, or perhaps a wedding or something like that, you would set this up outdoors, and these crayons, which are all different kind of colors and they light up, water shoots out of them, actually hits these other balloons, which actually start rising, changing in color and shape. And they're hitting other crayons that are actually being suspended by larger balloons. Mm-hmm. They're popping, and as this thing goes up, the balloons get larger and larger. This might be very expensive in Party City, by the way. Until the largest balloons at the top, where in a wedding, the bride and groom are actually in the balloons, and they actually go down on the strings that the balloons were holding. And that's what it is. It's ballions. It's $49.95, and you need the helium on the side as well.
Excellent. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
I'll buy that pitch. This is amazing. This is a creative process at work. I go to a lot of conferences, which you do also, and people share these great ideas, and they inspire me, and then I walk away and I say, what the heck did we talk about? So the question that we have to leave ourselves with today, and this is, I want you to turn to the person next to you and answer this question. How does Cirque du Soleil's "we can do it differently, we can do it better" process, how does this hybridization, how does anything you've heard today or seen at a Cirque du Soleil show, how can that impact your business? How can you and your team apply something that you've heard today to your business or your team or your process or your product? So that's the big question. How does it relate to you? Turn and talk. How does this relate to you? This is really fun and interesting to talk about hybridization at the circus, but how does this relate to you? How can you circify your team or your business? All right, let's get 2 or 3 people to share their thoughts. How does this relate to your business, your product, or a business or product or process? Let's get 2 or 3 people to share what you've come up with. We have 0, and we need 2 or 3 people to share. Yes?
We're actually going to, Carmen doesn't know this yet, but she's going to tell her side of our idea as well. So the idea is, I know that empathy is a big deal lately, and I think one of the things that you have done with Cirque du Soleil is created an imaginary space where everybody can identify with it on some level, even a childlike level. And so I'm a more practical person, and Carmen's more creative. But from my perspective, it is taking the opportunity to switch roles and understanding. So when I say creating a hybrid, that's how you can create a hybrid, is once understanding what the other can do.
Yeah.
So everyone would come in maybe once a year, you would go and take a role out of the hat, and then you would go and do that, whether it be in accounting, new business, production, whatever the case may be in your agency or your company. So that way, when you go back to your own role, you can see how you can affect others and how others are affecting you, and so you can make some changes. So now I'm going to pass it over to Carmen. I know there's probably somebody else, but it's a half. So
okay. Excellent. Great idea, taking someone's role, hybridizing to understand the various perspectives. Excellent. Yes.
Yep. And I to me, it was just very simple. As you talked about Ka and O and how love, it was just a tribute show. But then you applied those factors. How did you circuit? And so I feel like from just in the advertising industry or working in media, I feel like we need to, that's exactly how we need to approach all the different media channels. From when you're looking at television, how do you circ that? How do you do that for a creative message in the production process? And then also, how do you apply it to your life? From a person a professional to a mom to a partner, like how do you take that creativity to the next level?
How do you take it to the next level? Round of applause. We have one more thought. Right here. Thank you. How does this apply to your...
Hi. So we were talking here that in our industry, we usually have a pretty closed sandbox, I guess, that we can play in. But what we're saying here is that there's a lot of room up that sandbox that it allows for creativity. And that's what we see in these shows that we can also apply in our business.
Exactly. Look up. That's excellent. Give a round of applause. And we are almost out of time, or we are over time. I want to leave you with this. To be creative, to think like Cirque, you don't need a theater in the round. You don't need a 1.5 million gallon pool. You don't even need an 80,000 pound rotating stage. You only need a new lens. You only need to adopt that we can do it differently and we can do it better mindset. And when you adopt that mindset, I promise you it's going to lead to some amazing results, as you see here with the balloons and building blocks and crayons. So give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks for joining Cirque du Soleil. Thank you so much.